Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod, back with another preseason ranking video assessing most of the cast of Big Brother 28 on their potential to do well in the game and even win based on first impressions. I say most because there are some reality legends joining the group eventually, but for now, I'll be using the same rubric as last year to make player cards for each house guest, scoring them on potential for competition ability, strategic ability, perceived social skills, their game plan heading into the house, and an overall first impression. So I'm ranking them by score, and that's on scientific method. Before I dive in, I'll be recapping the season and doing weekly player rankings. So if you like the video, consider liking and subscribing for a fun summer. But let's dive into it, starting with my 14th place newbie with a 46% score. Supply chain analyst from Dallas, Chuck describes himself as easygoing and fun. I'm trying to figure out how much of this casting was his personality and how much was his hat. He pretty much admits that he doesn't watch the show and has walked past his family watching it. I gave him highest scores for competition ability because he's ripped, but that could only go so far. The 4 I gave him for strategic ability is maybe generous since he doesn't watch the show and definitely doesn't watch Survivor or Drag Race, so he's gonna have an issue with the returnees. He's all about his own social game though. Based on his own confidence, I'll give him a 5 for that, though I see no backup on his qualifications on that. You are not gonna believe his game plan. He wants to have a showmance, and in the process, he's also gonna win over all the women, but he's only gonna be kissing one of them. The rest will be his chosen family, and he's gonna use his ability to cut hair to make friends with the men. Not only is that not a good plan, but the other men seem to have no interest in getting their haircut, besides Yash, who is, I guess, a good ally if you need someone good at mazes, but we'll get to him soon. So overall, bad first impression score. Moving on to number 13. I had a few tie scores. In those cases, I had to make a judgment call with a 56 score. Drew is a surgical dental assistant from California. This guy seems like an interesting character, maybe, and is very hard to assess, describing himself as fun and unpredictable, which checks out. The biggest takeaway I have is his hair, which he's very proud of, and puts him into a small percentage of reality TV people whose hair is their whole personality. He calls it the droof, which I guess is the Drew poof. He claims he's a super fan, which I do buy, and he has a job that would require some brain power, so there's potential for strategy, and he looks like he'd be agile and coordinated in competitions or endurance challenges. His game plan, like so many others, is to act dumb and surprise everyone with how smart he is. Maybe he'll even surprise me because right now I'm on the fence. Low first impression scores because firstly he says he's worried his big fat mouth will get him in trouble and he'll cross the line, which will get him sent packing. Now what's he gonna say? Also, he's giving accidental Riz God energy, and with Survivor players added to the mix, especially from 50, that could impact his game in a way that would either get him targeted or manipulated. In 12th, also with a 56 score, Mallory is a 34-year-old rocket scientist from New Jersey. She's a longtime fan, which I like. That'll give her a base level of strategy, and she's obviously very smart and seems fit. She's so similar to Kelly from last season, which could make her a target, and just like Kelly, she's probably eerily good at blockbuster competitions, but she says people think she's a ditzy airhead. Who thinks that? I surely don't. Her peers in the rocket scientist community probably don't, so I question if Mallory is self-aware. She wants to bring a level of fun that hasn't been seen before. I'm not buying it. She wasn't bringing that much fun to even this interview. She's very confident in her own social game and says she has confidence other people won't have. You know what? She does have confidence. Her game plan is she wants to hide her smartness, which is not a good plan because she looks obviously smart. I'm gonna tell you right now, Ashley's influence last season and playing dumb as a winning strategy is having an impact of everyone on this cast wanting to play dumb. It's bothering me and everyone who says that, especially if they look obviously smart and have giant glasses. You're getting a low score for game plan. Not that everyone who has glasses is smart, but something about having glasses makes you look smart. If you want to play dumb, get contacts. She says she has a temper. Go off, Mallory. I need to see her pop off on somebody. Overall, I found this first impression to be all over the place. There's potential for her to shake things up, but I'm not as confident in her as a player. At 11, with a 62 score, Yash is a 24-year-old finance analyst from New Jersey, describes himself as fun and fresh. He says he's good at mazes and is competitive. I believe he would be great in challenges. There are red flags. He's not a fan, but has been watching lately. Anyone would be watching lately if they're maybe going on the show. He plans to lie about his job and say he works in marketing, not finance, which seems like a waste of energy and not really a plan. He says he would throw his game away for a showmance, which is not a good plan and also a wild thing to admit at this time. Even if he's good at challenges, mark my words, him winning HOH or any kind of power will be disastrous for his game. At number 10, this next person baffled me. Melody is a corporate game show host from Phoenix. Game show host is such a fun job, but I need to know more. Hopefully that means she'll be personable, but I really think it makes her most likely to have a completely different personality in the diary room that we we will never see in the house. We saw her in a Kill Bill costume with nunchucks and a sword with no explanation, which confused me, but made me curious. She's a longtime fan. Her strategy is to make alliances and play into how she looks, then show people later she can whoop them in competitions, which is a variation of playing dumb, but playing weak, which is the better version and good strategy for her. She says she's not open to showmances. She's about to stand on business, right? Right? Overall, the nunchucks made a fun presentation, but I don't think this BroVeal showed this person's real fun level. She describes herself as sensitive. We may have found this year's town crier. Overall, this is a low first impression score that I think will get better, which is enough to put her above Yash. At number 9, 29-year-old telemedicine manager Haley describes herself as fun, but I wasn't getting fun from her. Hers was one of, if not the most, low energy, which is a good sign for getting along with people, but not the best for entertainment. Luckily for her, entertainment isn't really something I'm scoring on. She's a casual fan. I'm left wondering really why and how she was cast. We didn't get a lot from her, but she's very fit, which could make her good in competitions. She says she's a good listener, and I bet she is. She doesn't seem like a talker. Her experience in her job should make her socially adaptable, so I gave her high scores for social, as she's the manager in telemedicine, so she's teaching people to be empathetic. She doesn't really have a game plan, and for her personality, that's probably for the best. The second she starts trying to do things is when things might go off the rails for Haley. In 8th, with another 64 score, 24-year-old bartender Ashley refers to herself as an outgoing, bubbly oversharer. She says she's competitive. I'm sure there are things that she can win, but I didn't get the vibe that she'd be particularly good in challenges. I gave lowest scores for her game plan. Again, wanting to play dumb, but I didn't take her to be so smart that she needs to hide her intelligence. She wants to rely on social ability and make a strong alliance, which is a decent plan, but also not really a plan. And I fear the game may get away from her. She did a lot of rambling, but through being a bartender and coming across fun, funny, and silly, I think people will like her and want to be her friend. So I gave high social scores. She's open to a showmance, which would help if she can hitch herself onto someone who can help her stay on track strategically. So overall, I scored a 6 for my first impression of her as a player, though this is a queen. In 7th, with another score of 64, Kamu is an MMA coach from Phoenix who describes himself as ambitious, driven, and laid back. One of those things doesn't belong, but anyway, he's a longtime fan and is clearly fit and agile, so I gave clear high competition scores to this guy, who will be a menace if they don't get him out early. He says that people think he's mean on first impression, but he's actually a sweetie, so he makes bad first impressions in real life, and here he wants to lie about his career, which I think is a bad game plan because his career explains his physique, and just to be randomly looking like an MMA fighter without being one is more menacing, though I think it's highly likely when these feeds come on, he will have already shared that he's a fighter and blown that plan. Overall, he does a lot of saying nothing. He seems competent enough, wants to be friends with everyone. I'm not that bothered, but I'm also not overall impressed. Getting to number 6 with a 66 score, finally scores that would pass a test. Rome is a 28-year-old pickleball coach who describes himself as bashful, introverted, and excitable. Who in real life that isn't friends with Snow White in a book describes themselves as bashful? I'm so bashful I went on TV and took my top off. High scores for competitions. He's obviously fit. I also think pickleball gives you a lot of accuracy that will help him with the carnival games that Big Brother throws at you. He describes himself as a secret nerd and wants to rally the betas and the submissives of the house, which was weird language that made me uncomfortable, but was a strange way to say he wants to be the king of the nerds, which I just don't think would happen. He doesn't have the right people here to make that a thing. I mean, how would you even know if any of these people are submissive betas without taking them to the Love Island hideaway? Overall, I got a bad first impression because he just seems like a real bullshit artist, even just down to his real name being Jack and not Rome, which must be some kind of complex. Betas and submissives hate to see this guy coming. In 5th, also with 66, Taylor is a 27-year-old counselor from Florida. I wrote in all caps, confidence. I love her personality. She describes herself as competitive and social. She's an on-again, off-again fan whose viewership seems to depend on her going through breakups, which is so real. She says she is just coming out of her villain era and might need to go back in. I need to learn more about the villain era that she's coming out of before we go into the next one. She says her biggest weakness is controlling her mouth, hinting that she's gonna pop off from time to time, which I can appreciate. She is sure she's going to make enemies, which did cost a social point or two. Her game plan is to have a 3-person alliance that leads 3 mini teams of little alliances. I gave her extra strategic points for actually thinking about a game plan, unlike everyone else, though I think this plan is a little too complicated to execute. One thing I know for sure, Taylor's HOA train will go crazy. In 4th, with another 66 score, Barrett is a Jumbotron engineer from Austin who describes himself as giggly, charming, and spicy. There was a lot to take in here. Firstly, what does a Jumbotron engineer do? I would imagine that's a smart job that would make someone good with their hands. And he was playing basketball, so I'm guessing he's unusually good in different challenges, which gave him high scores there. I gave good scores across the board for the most part. He seems well rounded, is a super fan, referencing Keisha's birthday, which always tickles me. I do think he'll be able to make people laugh and make friends. Where things go off the rails for me is he wants to do the thing where he's playing dumb and wants everyone to see him as a dumbass, wants to secretly be a cutthroat villain, but between the glasses, which we talked about, and the mustache. No, I'm not saying everyone with a mustache is sneaky, but I've watched a few movies, and if you don't want people to think you're sneaky, shave that lip. He looks smart and looks like a cutthroat villain, so his plan is flawed. Everyone's playing dumb. We're just gonna watch House of Dummies all summer when it takes 12 hours to finish the tire shoes competition because everyone's throwing it. So I think his game plan is bad, despite having so much potential that I'm not sure he knows what to do with. In third, I am giving my client card to Latrice, who says she's known as Lala and works in sales from New Jersey. She describes herself as fantabulistic, and you know what? I agree. At 58 years old, she's really about to be repping for the older house guests and wants to be the oldest winner ever. She's single and open to a showmance. She seems smart and is clearly in good shape. She plays football and is a bodybuilder. She can win competitions. She also has great social skills. The oldest player often falls into this role where they're liked, are able to get far, but just can't win the competitions they need to. So I see a lot of promise in the long term for Lala if she can get past the first few rounds. And there are a few players on this list and off that would be friends with her. I wish I heard more of a game plan from her. I was hoping she would end up as number one on this list, but the scores just didn't line up from what I'm seeing so far. I'm hoping we could see an uphill journey from Latrice. In second with 76, Lyric is a 25-year-old attorney from Honolulu, Hawaii. She's also a singer who's competed on American Idol. There's a lot going on with this girl. If you asked ChatGPT to cook up a Big Brother contestant, I feel it would combine a lot of people together to create Lyric. She's smart, seems athletic, competitive. If I'm ranking on potential, which I am, there's a lot there. She grew up with her father being a famous musician, which could help her connect with players like Jason or Latrice who work in entertainment. The biggest question mark would be her actual social skills and strategy, as I didn't get the vibe that she was going to be a very cunning player. Her game plan is to lie about her job, and I would say the one time I will give a lie about your job high scores is if you're a lawyer. She's going to say she's a singer, and she's a pretty good singer, so no one's going to doubt that. But finally, in my number one spot of the newbies, with a score of 78, is Jason, who's most known to us as Drag Race's Selena S. Titties, who most recently competed on All Stars 11, which is still airing. First of all, on that season, the judges robbed Selena of top placements. She should still be on the show. She was trying to run the game on that season, but ultimately failed, ultimately getting betrayed by her Peck Peck alliance and having a huge outburst in Untucked. For people who don't watch Drag Race, she flopped strategy and it was drama. I was happy to see Jason own Selena's mistakes here, which made me feel better about the strategy side of it, though I'm still not all the way convinced about the strategy. I'm monitoring that situation in the house. I gave lowest scores for competitions because, based on everything I've seen, I am not so confident in Jason's ability to be calm under pressure, but very high scores for social skills. I don't often give a 10, but he is very funny, very entertaining, which will go a long way. I feel good about the game plan to work out, wanting to work out with the guys and bond with the girls. Overall, I gave pretty high scores overall. I think this is cool. He's wanted to compete on social strategy shows for a while and has even been in the house before for press, and I think Jason greatly benefits from not being called one of the vets. So while he is a reality star and can bond with the vets when they come in, he's still got a better in with the newbies and can play both sides, which in my opinion puts Jason in the best spot heading into the game. So that's my ranking of the 14 newbies. I'm coming back on Thursday to recap the premiere, and whenever these vets have promo pictures, I'm going to score them, and through that, we'll have a full cast ranking. So expect another video about the vets, I'd say Thursday night. If you like this video, consider liking and subscribing, and let me know in the comments, how would you rank these new players? Until next time, you know where to find me. Bye!